Welcome to today's class, which is called Core Stability. Thinking about the tissue box of our centre where we switch on the core. I'm also going to call it the corset class. Have a little think about that. Joseph Pilates called our torso the corset. Oh yes. So we're going to start with some big swings. Today's class is quite static when we're activating the core. So I just want to do some big body movements to get you warmed up a little bit, and then most of the class will be on the floor. So I'm just taking some big swings. I'm keeping my chest quite upright. I'm taking it easy to start with. A nice big breath out as you swing the arms down and a breath in as you return. As you start to get a little bit more warmed up, maybe bending those knees a little bit more so that the fingertips brush the floor. Then I'm going to start to let my head hang. And then I'm going to add in a little hallelujah where we drive the hips forwards and we let the arms go back. I always used to say to my class members that I didn't want them to do the hallelujah, but because nowadays we're thinking more about our fascia and all of the just stretching beyond all of the tissues and the connective tissue, but also stretching beyond the everyday. So just quite enjoying that. Feels quite nice. Brilliant. And then taking a big old figure of 8. I'm coming forward so I don't crash into my wall. I've changed my camera angle slightly so that I'm more, you can see my arms on the next exercise. I'm taking a big figure of 8. I'm drawing a big circle either side of my body. I'm turning and looking at the side of the room, and I'm transferring my weight from side to side, keeping my arms, my hands quite close together. And again, as you start to warm up with this, look all the way behind you so that we get that lovely spiraling action, which we know is the thing that wakes up our fascia, our connective tissue, all the way around from that back hand that's all the way at the top to the opposite foot and toes, and gets you quite nice and warm and a little bit out of breath if you're trying to talk at the same time. Okay, great. Let's bring the feet together if you can. Be really comfortable with the feet. So if your feet don't go together, that's absolutely fine. The shape of your legs will determine how comfortable that is for you. But legs as close together as possible. Thinking about squeezing in towards the centre with your legs. As you know, if I relax my legs, you can see the white wall behind because my legs are slightly bowed. And then if I activate those muscles, then this might not be possible for you. It's absolutely fine. But I'm drawing in towards that central line. Thinking about that wonderful plumb line that represents the middle of my body. And then I'm going to take my arms out to the side, fully rotate the hands and the arms out. So really sort of rotating that shoulder joint back as far as it can go. So my little fingers are on top. I'm bringing my arms up to the side, and then I'm bringing them up to a big wide V, and then I'm just bending them over at the top. And then reaching up and pushing down. As I'm pushing down through my arms, it's like I'm trying to swim up to the surface of the water if I was underneath the water. And I'm really conscious of my lats and the muscles around the shoulder blades in the back activating as I'm pushing down. So swiveling round in the hip, sorry, not the hip, the shoulder socket, little fingers on top, curving those arms around, not letting the shoulders draw up, and then reaching up a little bit. You can lift the shoulders a bit here, and then pushing down. We're going to add some nice breathing to this. I'm squeezing my legs all the time as well. Big breath in at the bottom and a breath out as you go up, so that we get that lovely rib cage drawing down towards the hips, and then breathing in as we lower the arms, pushing the arms down, creating quite a bit of tension there, and growing taller each time. This is our breath out. I'm rubbish, as you know, at talking and breathing or doing the set breathing, so you might be going a little bit faster than me, but focus on that breath out, rib cage drawing down, breath in, lengthen. Be very conscious of your little finger. As far as the fascia side of things goes, we want that connection from the little finger all the way round to the outside edge of our shoulder blades. And I can really feel those muscles switching on when I do this sort of work. Pushing down. We're going to add a leg into this. So we're going to take alternate knee fold. So breathing out, the arms go up. I'm going to reach the arms up, pulling them down as I peel one heel off the floor and lift that leg into a knee fold. As my arms are coming down, I'm going to push that foot into the floor, and as I push that heel down, it's like that's setting me up for the arms. Arms on their own, breath out, rib cage drawing down, pelvic floor lifted. Bringing the arms down, lifting the knee, almost lifting the knee up to meet. And then the foot goes down, the heel goes down, arms on their own. What I'm really trying to concentrate on here is not shifting too much from side to side. It's actually quite hard work. And we're going to do something at the very end of class, which we have done the last couple of weeks, we've done before in class, and it just is going to show us how that balance is. So notice how your balance is now. We're trying to be stable in the torso. We're trying to set that core, creating that core set. C-O-R-E set. And all of the exercises are going to be working towards that. Brilliant. And relax a moment. So that's our rib cage closure. We're going to go straight into some wide leg hip hinge. Feet are nice and wide. In steps are parallel, so stretching the backs of the legs, pop the hands on the shoulders and lift the elbows up and out to the side, and then hinge forwards. Find your biting point for your hip hinge and your hamstring stretches primarily. Maybe just check that weight is forwards on the balls of the feet so you can tap both heels. If you can see yourself in the mirror, your elbows, there's a straight line that's parallel to the floor, so a horizontal line from elbow to elbow, and it's creating a beautiful straight line across my shoulders as well. From the side, nothing is changing in the shape of my spine. So I go quite far forwards. I've got good hamstring length. I can feel the stretch there, it's absolutely brilliant. You could take your weight back into your heels a little bit more and send your sit bones and your hips back a little bit more, which will get you a little bit more at the top of the hamstrings. But primarily, we're thinking about the shoulder girdle. Because this is all part of where our shoulder blades sit and rest in this tissue box of our torso, where we want to work all the core muscles. Where the shoulder blades sit has a big impact on how well you're stabilising in your whole body. So let's move on. Come down into that position and then extend the arms out to the side. They should be nice and horizontal, parallel to the floor. And then we're going to draw a golf ball sized circle at your fingertips, but with the whole arm, moving from the shoulder joint, about 10 in each direction. So quite a small circle, quite subtle. Hopefully you're noticing, as well as a hamstring stretch, that you're firing up the muscles around the shoulder blades. And then just come up to stand, but watch me a moment. I'm going to let my arms hang towards the floor, and I'm really relaxing my arms. But the thing I want you to notice is that my shoulders from side to side are staying in a square line. Then we're going to allow the arms to just hang completely. So it's like I've released the shoulder blades to slide around the ribcage wall, hanging those arms, and then I'm going to pin the shoulders back up again, using the muscles in the back, and then opening the arms out. Try that with me a couple of times. I'm going to go sideways. What I want you to also be aware of is that you don't let your head change its position. So arms are out to the side, hinging forwards. Find that biting point for your hamstrings. Be very conscious of your shoulder girdle from side to side on your shoulders as you relax those arms. Let them just hang, let gravity hang. Now let the whole arm just slide. It's like it's only attached at your spine. Both sides have just rounded equally, and then lift them back up again without pinching the shoulder blades together, and then opening out to the side, being very conscious that the neck shape hasn't changed. Let's do that one more time. We are here, pitching forwards, keeping the chin tucked in, letting those arms hang. So we've got a square door frame now. When you let your arms relax, hands don't come any closer together because they're just hanging in gravity. But now we've got a curve. We've got a 1970s curve, an arch way, and then we're lifting the shoulders back up to door frame, and then we're opening the arms out. And let's stay here actually, and let's bend the knees and straighten the legs. Bend and straighten. So knees going over the toes. I'm lifting and lowering my whole body like a platform. I'm not changing the shape of my back. Warming up the hips. This time I'm going to take my hands down to the floor. I'm going to walk my feet out much, much wider. Toes going out to the corners, and we're going from side to side. In the same way that we did our big mobilising movements in the warm-up, these are our stretches. Not much to do with the core, but stuff to do on a daily basis, as you know. And I also know that if I don't do them in class with you, you won't do. These sort of coming down to the floor, bigger stretches, we tend not to do when we're just practicing our daily stuff. We tend to do the easy stuff of being already standing or whatever. Let's turn all the way around to the side, coming into that nice long lunge. Adjust your feet so that your feet are hip width apart. Opposite hand to that front foot, underneath your shoulder. Make sure the knee is above or behind the ankle. The same arm is going forwards and then up, opening up the chest and the spine, reaching back, and then tucking in that elbow, that shoulder to thread the needle through. Think of it like a clock. You're reaching forwards. Let's say this is 3 o'clock. I'm going up to 12. I'm going anti-clockwise. 9. And then when we do the 6 is our rotation here. One more. Think about the shoulders now. So shoulders are parallel to the floor. Now they're vertical. Staying vertical and then going through horizontal and rounding a little bit. Let's twiddle around to the other side. Your feet stay the same distance apart, but you need to move them around a little bit so that they're still hip width apart when you get to the other side. Make sure you're comfortable. The hand opposite that front foot is underneath your shoulder. You're reaching forwards. A nice straight arm up to the top. Going to the back, threading the needle through. Keep breathing. So now we're going 9 o'clock. Now we're going clockwise. 12 o'clock at the top. 3 o'clock. Gosh, that took a while, didn't it? And 6 o'clock, reaching through. Think about the shoulders. They're horizontal. they're vertical, they're staying vertical. I'm pushing back into that back heel a little bit, and then they're going beyond horizontal. I can't work out what that one is. Great job. Bringing your feet in. I'm rolling up. We're going to be down on the floor from now on. I will see you down there on your back in the base position. Brilliant. So from your base position, the base position is where your spine is in its neutral. We want to really be very conscious of all of the shapes and the contact with the mat with our body when we're lying in this position. It's going to be really important for working our core today and setting that torso. So let's just think about our feet. Feet are equally weighted all the way around. Feet and knees are in line with your hips, hip bones, remember, not too wide, but the hip bones at the front. I do a combination of things here when I'm trying to really find a good neutral. I have a look, I have a touch and a feel and a check, and I also sort of wiggle about a little bit to find that middle position, because sometimes you're not quite sure. So let's think about the pelvis. So we've set the feet and the knees in line with the hips, feet quite close to your body. Think about the space in your lower back, so your lower back curve, the space at the back of your neck, so those two curves. We've also got another curve, so we've got a concave curve at the neck and the lumbar spine. We've got a convex curve in the ribs. When we first lie down, we tend to be a little bit lifted in the ribs, especially the ribs at the front. You'll notice if you're lifted because the ribs at the front will be lifted up. So think of the back of your body as blotting paper. Let it sink, let it melt, completely as relaxed as possible with those lower ribs. Remember your lower ribs, if you take your thumbs and take them to the side seam of your top, your t-shirt, you'll feel the ribs at the back are practically on top of your waistband. They're only an inch or so above your waistband, so really quite low. At the front they're much higher, it curves around and comes up. So we want the ribs at the front to be relaxed, pop your hand there, push them down a little bit. The ribs at the back, ideally, even the lowest ones, to be just brushing the floor, so that the curve in your lower back is opposite your belly button, not all the way up to your shoulder blades, which is where it is when we're holding tension. Think about the pelvis, either side, hips either side of the spine, equally weighted, pubic bone, hip bones on the same plane. That's how you know when you're in a neutral. Lift your head up, have a little look if you're not so sure. Thumbs together, forefinger together. Those hands should be flat, not bent, not fingertips higher than the heels of your palms. What else? Collarbone, nice and open. The backs of the shoulders relax so that your collarbone is open. Your shoulder blades are equally weighted. Have a little wiggle about there. The back of your head, if you imagine your head, just your head is a tissue box, so a rectangular tissue box. If you lift your head up and look past the top of your head to the ceiling behind you, if you like, you're going to be on that top corner of the tissue box. I want you to tuck the chin in. I've just discovered this new little analogy. Tuck the chin in, and the back of the middle of your head, the middle part of your head is the bulkiest part of the head. That, again, that convex curve at the base of the skull, not the base of the skull, sorry, the bulkiest part of the skull, that's going to be where you take your tissues out. Oh yeah, that's today's little new analogy. So that nicely in the middle, and for that we generally need to tuck the chin in a little bit and lengthen the back of the neck out. Okay, we're going to span fingers and thumbs apart and place them on our torso. Little fingers, if you can, touching your hip bones, those bony prominences, the ASIS, the front of the hips. Thumbs in contact with your flaring ribs at the front, the ribs that float and open up at the front. Elbows on the floor. Hopefully noticing, for me, my right side elbow wants to, my right side shoulder wants to pitch forwards a little bit, trying to keep that collarbone open, but that's just my personal issue there. We're going to take a nice deep breath in. Expanding the ribs, allow those ribs at the front to flare, feel that they flare, and then notice when you breathe out, and maybe make a hissing sound, so a snake style hissing sound. Just get as many S's in as I can there. So hissing out through the teeth, rather than just blowing out or not doing a sort of yogic breathing by taking the air across the back of the throat. Make a hiss. And as you make that hiss, you might notice that you switch on your pelvic floor a little bit. So big breath in, span the ribs sideways with that big load of air, expand the ribs back into the mat and let those ribs flare at the front, and then take the hissing sound as you breathe out. Notice that everything is drawing down towards that centre. Do that a couple of times. Relaxing collarbone, or everything else is there. Then keep those ribs especially switched on. Keep them connected to the hips, like you're baking a rod between your little finger and your thumb. This is how we set the core. Pelvic floor is lifted. There hasn't been any change in the shape of the lower back. And then we're going to slide one leg along the floor and bring it back in. Changing sides, alternating sides. So think of your body as being absolutely solid. If you've been doing Pilates with me a little while, you're probably noticing that you're not rocking and rolling from side to side because you've got enough stamina and awareness there to keep that under control. But just watch, if you let that long leg relax completely, notice that your little finger, where your little finger was in contact with your hip bone, notice that that might just stretch away a little bit. Don't let that happen either. So slide the leg away. The leg is relaxed, but you're not allowing that torso to expand, even the tiniest amount. We're drawing these 2 points together, ribs at the front, hips at the front, not letting anything change. Great, let's take the arms down by the side. Let's focus a little bit more. So we did the rib cage to hips. I didn't really talk about shoulders sliding down in your back. Shoulder blades sliding down in your back as if you're putting your shoulder blades into your back pocket of your jeans. And also giving yourself a little bit of an armpit hug. But that doesn't really, you won't really notice that one so much with this exercise, with this movement. We're just going to take one arm up and over, keeping it nice and straight, stretching towards the floor behind you and then returning. Noticing in your collarbone, your ribs, your shoulder girdle, that there's no rocking and rolling from side to side. No change in the head. The torso is set, nothing is changing. The ribs aren't flaring. There's no need to flip your fingers back at your wrist in order to touch the floor. Just find your biting point, if you like, where that rib cage wants to flare, but don't let it happen. And I keep closing my eyes actually. The reason I'm closing my eyes is so that I can really fine tune what's going on in my body, as opposed to, hopefully you haven't got to keep looking at the screen because you know all of this stuff already. This is the difficulty of being on the floor. I've changed my camera angle a little bit, hopefully it makes it a little bit easier, but I'm conscious of trying to talk you through it rather than asking you to look at me. Brilliant. Bring that arm back. So we're alternating the arms. Now let's alternate arm, opposite arm and leg. The leg is sliding away, the arm is reaching up overhead, and then we're sliding them back in at the same time. This is a fairly basic exercise, but in order to do it well, you have to work quite hard, keeping that torso absolutely still. Noticing with your eyes closed whether there's any change, any rocking and rolling in the shoulder girdle, the pelvis, the pelvic girdle, any extension of the torso by flaring the ribs and or letting those hips extend away. Let's take one arm and leg away and hold it there a moment. Just connect everything and then lift that long leg slightly off of the floor. It's not a leg lift, it's just, I'm just hovering it off the floor. My calf muscles are quite big, so they're just dangling, and I can just about feel my calf muscle, the bulkiest part of my calf and my heel, they're just brushing the floor. And then the arm, I'm going to take my spare arm that's not getting involved, and I'm just going to press my rib cage down on the same side as the arm that's extended away, putting those ribs into the front pocket of your jeans. Just tucking that in, keeping the head relaxed, the shoulders relaxed, holding it there, taking some breathing. Nice deep breaths. You won't be able to go too deep because you don't want to disturb what's going on in your centre, but try and take a good conscious breath in and out. So we're building the stamina. I've just noticed my right shoulder, so I've got my left arm extended, my right shoulder was pushing forwards quite significantly actually because I was holding some tension there. I'll just let it relax. Brilliant. And bring that arm and the leg back in. Swap to the other side. Initially have the leg on the floor, but remember we're not relaxing it. Set everything. Notice, does it feel any different on this side? Draw the ribs down, slide the shoulder blades down in the back, and then hover the leg off the floor. Try not to get too tense in the quads, front of the thigh, the hip flexors. Notice what's going on with the leg that you're not using, the shoulder that you're not using. Again, I've had to relax that shoulder back onto the floor. I'm focusing so much on drawing the rib cage down. I'm working a little bit too hard. That opposite shoulder is getting involved a little bit. Holding it there, trying to expand and breathe quite deeply. So when you're expanding the breath, expanding the rib cage, moving the diaphragm a little bit, that's challenging your ability to keep your torso really still. Building some stamina in these muscles. If they're shaking, that's amazing. That's exactly what we want. Good. That was opposite arm and leg sliding away. Add leg lift and hold. We're taking this up a notch. It's significantly harder what we're about to do. So we're going to lift the legs up into tabletop, making sure the knees are directly above the hips, feet slightly higher than the knees, so that the pelvis, the hip flexors are relaxed. My lower back is in its neutral, pelvis is in neutral. I'm going to take the arms up to the ceiling, palms facing the knees. And then we're going to take, it's called a dead bug. We're going to keep one arm and leg where it is. We're going to take the opposite arm and leg back towards the floor to touch the floor and then to return. So the arm is doing the same as it just did, but not quite as much movement. And the leg is doing a toe tap. If you can, have a little look at the angle of my leg, the shape of my leg. It does not change. I'm not straightening the leg, this would be straightening the leg, and I'm equally not just taking my toe to the floor, bending at the knee. That's called cheating. I want that leg to stay in the same shape. The other arm and leg are staying really still. I'm working super hard now in my torso to create the stability. I'm really concentrating on the rib cage drawing down. I paused a little bit then to just have a delivery of something, waiting for the dog to start barking. Opposite arm and leg reaching away from that centre, hanging on to that centre. Beautiful. Hands interlace at the back of the head, coming up. In fact, sorry, let's put the feet down a moment. Have a very quick relax. So, into some abdominal curls. So generally when we think about training the torso, not the torso, sorry, when we think about training our core, we think mainly abdominals. And when we're doing our abdominals, we're focusing mainly on the front line of the body. But actually, to work your core stability, we want all of the muscles surrounding the spine in the torso to be working together and to be equally as strong. So yes, we're about to do our abdominal section. This isn't the be all and end all of your core work. You need to work the sides, you need to work the back, we need to get those shoulder blades in the right place for it all to work. So let's interlace the hands, put them over where you would take your tissues out at the back of your head, bring your elbows forwards. Now we can think more about this armpit hug. So slide the shoulder blades down in your back towards your hips, put your shoulder blades in the back pocket of your jeans. Notice that creates a bit of tension around the armpit and therefore your lats, therefore your serratus, that's the muscles we want to switch on here. So they've got that armpit hug, and that also will draw those ribs down to connect to the hips at the front. Unweight your feet just a tiny bit to get that pelvis and that sacrum a little bit heavier, and then we're coming up for a plain abdominal curl. Remember, your arms and your hands are lifting your upper body up. When you lower, do not relax. I have a new thought for you. As you're lowering, lower down really slowly. Imagine you're being lowered over the edge of a cliff top, and the rope is going along your torso. Keep those muscles switched on and almost feel like you're lengthening them down. The moment your knuckles brush the floor, you're coming back up again. There is no relaxing here, unfortunately. It's quite strong. Stay up this time. Move that head around. Make sure that your head and neck are relaxed, your neck especially. Lift the legs up one at a time into tabletop. We're taking our toe taps from here. Much more challenging now. Trying to clear those shoulder blades. I'm moving my shoulders around a little bit. My shoulder blades are clear. The tip of my shoulder blades are not touching the floor. But this is the height of my abdominal curl. I don't need to come up any higher. I'm working really hard in that centre, that core. It's all starting to shake a little bit. I'm a little bit tired. We're going to add on, when you've done an equal amount of toe taps, if you can and or you want to, as you lower the leg for the toe tap, lower the upper body, and then come back to the start. So I've now got a Larry the Lamb shaking my voice, which shows you how hard I'm working in my core. So I've been teaching this class all week. It's a really tough class as far as the abdominals go. We don't generally work quite this intensely. And also I've just done my own Pilates class. Woo! I'm going to do one more of those. Great job. Stay up if you can. Bring those legs together. We're extending the legs out and then drawing them in. Extending the legs out and drawing them in. I'm bringing my knees in a little bit past 90 degrees, but I'm actually not allowing my lower back shape to change. The challenge here is extending those legs out, so creating that longer lever. I'm not allowing anything to change in my torso. Two more. Relaxing the head. Ooh, and whoa. Okay. Hanging onto your knees, having a little roll from side to side, circling the knees maybe, and or have a nice stretch out with that whole body. That was intense. I want you to have the same level of intensity for the next exercise, which is called a lower body toner. I pinched it from my Pilates teacher who did a scoliosis course, and it's essentially working all of your internal stabilising muscles, so pelvic floor, inside thighs, adductors, sit bones, using that whole area to try and build some stamina there. So we're going to bring the knees in as much as you can. Place your hands on your knees to start with, and really bring them in as much as you can, and notice that that pushes your lower back into the floor, which will feel quite nice. Have a little bit of a wiggle about there. And then we want to make that movement even stronger by switching on our muscles in our tummy, our pelvic floor area, and really draw the belly button tight as you can and push. Apply pressure from that lower back point into the floor. So it's like you're trying to really change that. You're really pushing that lower back into the floor. So lift your pelvic floor internally, squeeze your sit bones towards each other, squeeze your knees together, squeeze your ankles together. And we're just going to stay in this folded in position, and you're slowly going to lift your feet up towards the ceiling, but keeping all of those squeezing actions going on, all the way up to the top, and then lowering for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Don't relax. We're going to go 2 more times. And 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lower at the same pace. 8, 7, 6. Knees squeezing together, ankles squeezing together, pelvic floor lifted. I'm pushing my lower back into the floor. Going up again, last one. Make a little bit more effort this time. Everything for me is shaking and quivering, all very internal, quite subtle. Squeeze those knees together, try and roll the thighs in. Last one, make a bit of extra effort on the way down with those feet. Bring the knees in, push that lower back in, squeeze those sit bones towards each other. Woof, and relax. Well done. Again, whatever feels natural there. And in fact, I feel like I want to take my legs from side to side. And that is the next exercise. So now just working our crossways muscles, our obliques, internal and external obliques. Taking the arms out to the side, squeezing feet and knees together, making sure that you're in a good neutral. Really push your shoulder blades, or open up your collarbone, push your shoulder blades into the mat, and also the backs of your hands into the mat, and the whole of the back of your arm actually into the mat, more so than we normally would do. And then keep those knees squeezing together, take them over to one side. Your whole pelvis is going to go over to the side. The outside foot is coming off the floor, you come back through the centre, you go to the other side. Make sure when your knees are over to the side that the opposite shoulder blade is still as equally pushed into the floor as it was when your legs are in the middle. So don't let that shoulder lift off. Push it down. So you won't go quite as far as you would like to maybe. Keep those knees squeezing together, keep your instep squeezing together. You roll onto the outside edge of one foot, the foot of the side that you're rolling towards. As you bring those knees back, imagine there's a tow rope again from just below that opposite shoulder blade at the back, and it's going across your body to the opposite knee, to the outside edge of the opposite knee. Push those ribs at the back into the floor. That is what will bring your knees back together. And squeeze the knees together a little bit as well. So we're looking to wake up this diagonal line from the opposite knee to the shoulder at the back line of the body, working those inside thighs. Great, let's take a little bit more of a challenge. Legs are in the air, tabletop. Knees are directly above your mine, so I thought I was really quivering. Knees are directly above your hips, feet are slightly higher than your knees. Squeeze your feet and knees together. Lower back, pelvis is in neutral. Do exactly the same thing. Take your legs to the side. Do not let that opposite shoulder blade unweight. It will unweight a little bit, but really try and keep it still. Taking the pelvis all the way over. Relaxing the neck. I'm telling that's a cue to myself more than anything. I can feel my neck getting a little bit tense. Take those crossways muscles. Last one is our full legs extended hip rolls. I've got a lovely little word on both of my socks, and as I'm looking up to the ceiling, I can see my big toes and those words are perfectly aligned. As I take my legs from one side to the other, that does not change. It's exactly the same when my legs are in the middle as when they go from side to side. Shoulder blades staying equally weighted. Push, squeeze the legs together. Find that midline squeeze that we did when we were standing in the warm-up. This is what connects everything. This is what gives us our strength in our core. Maintaining a neutral pelvis. The legs don't have to be completely straight, but they need to stay in the same shape, if that makes sense. And enough there. Fantastic. I think we are lying on our sides next. Yes, we are. So as I said, when we're thinking about our core, we're thinking about all around the torso. So just come down to lying on your side. Actually, I'm going to go this side first. Lying on your side with your legs bent, your feet in line with your hips and your spine. The rest of your spine lined up with the back edge of the mat, or in its natural curve, I should say. And just lie and be completely relaxed. So the whole of my underneath side of my body has collapsed into the floor. It feels quite nice. Yeah, and then I want you to switch on that underneath side or push away from the floor so that we're setting the torso a little bit more. So push down into the shoulder and the hip, and then you should have a bit of a gap here. And then what will happen is that now we're setting the torso. When you're here, this top hip rolls in and just collapses in. When we're here and we're lifted on that underneath side, hips are stacked one on top of the other. My underneath leg is also relaxed at the moment, just getting the other leg out of the way. When my underneath leg is relaxed and I'm not doing anything with it, my ankle, this ankle, is slightly lifted off the floor. I'm going to push the whole of that side, that underneath leg, into the floor, which includes my ankle bone. Now I'm really activating that whole side on the underneath part of my body, the bit that's in contact with the floor. I'm going to squeeze my heels together to just fire up the back line of the body a little bit more and lift that top knee as far as I can. The reason I change sides is because this is my tighter side. So lifting the top knee and lowering it with resistance. So working hard on the way up and on the way down. Now in the old days, before we started doing this, pushing into the floor, really setting the torso, you would start to feel some work in this buttock. I don't feel that anymore with these exercises. I feel like my whole of my body is involved, but specifically the whole of the torso, and that's good. If you start to get a little bit necky, just turn your head towards the floor. And then lifting the feet up, lift the feet up so that the feet are in line with your hips. And then same thing. So the first one was called the clams, this one's called the oyster. I'm still squeezing my heels together. My thigh on that underneath side is still pushing into the floor. But now I can lift that knee a little bit higher. It's like just opened out the hip. Check with your spare hand that your hip isn't rolling backwards and forwards. Check with your spare hand that you've still got a gap underneath. I can get my whole hand there. Working hard, working along the side lines of the body, the side seams of the body, drawing that top shoulder down away from your ears, your ear I should say. Good work. Woo. Twiddling round to the other side. Setting yourself up well. Remember, the setup is always very important. If you had your legs in a different position, this whole exercise you just target slightly different muscles. Allow yourself to relax and collapse. Notice this shoulder rounds forwards a little bit. Everything's just nice and relaxed. Feels quite a nice thing to do. And then push down. At the shoulder, at the hip. But you're pushing down in order to straighten up your spine, to lift the body away from the floor, using the floor. Push down that underneath foot and ankle. Well, that's the bit that I really notice it, but I'm pushing down the whole of that side of that leg. Keeping the heels squeezed together, lifting that knee with resistance, lowering it with even more resistance. Checking with your spare hand that the hip isn't rolling back. So if your hip is particularly tight, noticing the difference between this side and the other side, opens up a little bit more easily for me on this side. If your hip is tight, you might compensate, your body might cheat by rolling backwards with the hip. So you'll feel like that knee's going higher. When I'm chatting and talking about other stuff, I keep forgetting to lower my knee with resistance. Lower it with resistance. You should be feeling some work. I'm feeling work everywhere actually. Buttocks, legs, the whole of the torso, everything's feeling like it's working. Great, lift those feet up. Knees are together, feet are up. Keep the heels squeezing together. That knee will go much higher. Checking that the hips staying still. Checking your ribs at the front, they shouldn't be flaring. This is why we've lifted this underneath side away from the floor. Keep the heels squeezing together. My heels are squeezing together, but my feet are really relaxed. If you relax, if you've just got your heels touching, it switches off the back line of the leg. Keep those heels pushing down towards each other, pushing in towards each other I should say. Watch that top shoulder hasn't crept up. Great, and I think that is enough there. Wonderful. Let's come to lie on our tummies. I'm going to put my mat a little bit more back to the jaunty angle. We're going to repeat the exercise we did standing up in the beginning, or the movement we did standing up in the beginning. So it's like a dart. We're going to start with the big toes together, heels relaxed out to the side. Bring your arms by your side, have the tip of your nose just hovering or just touching the mat to start with, and then just maybe hover the head off a little bit. Backs of the hands are on the floor. Completely relax your shoulders. Go into full Quasimodo mode with the shoulders, and also think about that 1970s curve or archway we made earlier when we were standing. Allow those shoulders to just relax forwards, and then we're going to squeeze the legs together by bringing the heels together. Keep the legs on the floor, keep the legs really nice and straight. Create that central line. Don't turn out at the hip, just squeeze the legs together, create that central line. Lift the shoulders up into your square door frame. Lift the arms up. Touch your thumbs to your thighs and then turn your thumbs outwards from your body. Keep your arms low, reaching towards the feet, until you can put your little fingers on the floor and your thumbs are sticking up to the ceiling. And now sweep those arms round. It feels like you're gathering up something on the floor. This is what we did when we were standing. We came into that nice wide V, and then we turned it into a curve. Palms facing the tops of your head. Then extend the arms away, straighten out the arms, open up the legs to a parallel position, and when your arms are pretty much level with your shoulders, lift your back up as high as you can if you would like to, and then come back into the centre and collapse and relax. Let's just do that one more time. Let's do it a couple more times. Think about setting the torso. So in order to get that back extension, you have to just set your torso here. So be completely relaxed to start with, and then lift the back of the head and neck slightly. When we squeeze the legs together, so bring your heels together, that's going to activate pelvic floor. It's going to switch on that lower girdle. Lift your shoulders, slide those shoulder blades down in your back a little bit. That's helping you set that upper body. It will also help your rib cage to connect to your hips at the front. Lifting the arms up, rotating around. Now we've got even more connection with the front of the body, keeping those thumbs up as you sweep the arms round. Keep the shoulders drawing down, just curve the arms in. If you can hold this position a moment, that's really great strength in that upper back. So well done if you're there. And then as you open out the arms, open up the legs, lengthen the spine out through the top of the head, and relax. One more, last one, here we go. Squeeze the heels together in that central line, lift the shoulders. Lift the arms, turn those arms round all the way. Really being conscious of the backs of your shoulder blades. That's just outside edge of your shoulder blades. Sweep the arms round. Keep the shoulders down, keep reaching those shoulder blades into your back pocket. Curve the arms above the head and then extend, open up, lift that back, reach the fingertips towards the feet, and have a little relax. Brilliant. We're going to do one more. No, I'm going to do one more exercise. Forehead on the hands. Legs hip width apart. Curl your toes under. Put your forehead on your hands. So I've got my fingers are on fingers, so that's generally quite comfortable. Relax everything. Have a little collapse or a little wiggle around. Notice that you're not holding any tension in your torso at all. And then we're going to switch muscles on, the same way as we've been doing all the way through class, and keep them switched on once we've activated them. So the first one is belly, lower belly towards your spine, as if there's an ice cube underneath your tummy. And you're trying not to let it melt. You're trying not to let your skin touch it. I know it's a big ask, but internally really lift that belly, lower belly away. As you do this, so essentially you're doing belly button to spine, that sort of action. Hopefully you'll notice your pelvic floor joining in. So lifting in and up internally towards your head, along the spine. Hopefully that will happen quite automatically. Notice that the buttocks are relaxed. Let's push down, let's slide the shoulder blades down in your back, pop those shoulder blades into the back pocket of your jeans. Push down in your elbows slightly, maybe slightly unweight your forehead, but not much. And notice that this action will also mean that you're drawing your ribs at the front, those floating ribs at the front, you're connecting them towards your hip bones. Now switch on your sit bones. Slide, actually no. Let's push the pubic bone into the mat. and straighten the legs, and as you do that, switch on your sit bones. I don't want you to use whole big buttock activation. I don't want you to use all of the buttock muscles. I just want you to think of sliding the sit bones towards each other. Hold those legs nice and straight. Keep everything switched on. I'm working quite hard, focusing on the front of the body even though we're lying on it. And then just alternate your feet. Point the toes of one foot, curl the toes back under. Point the toes of the other foot, curl the toes back under. Your goal here is to have absolutely no rocking and rolling from side to side in your pelvis. Be conscious of your hip bones either side. Does one dip into the floor when you point the foot on one side? Can you keep those sit bones switched on? Can you keep your legs straight and hovering off the floor? It's quite a hard task. And relax when you've done an equal amount both sides. Fantastic. Let's come up onto all fours and just have a little release of everything. So some spine circles. Both directions with those ribs. Circling around, horizontal ones. Maybe big toes together, knees nice and wide. Take a sway from side to side. Take that ear towards your inner arm. So where we've been working and switching on all these muscles around the torso, all these supporting, stabilising muscles, let's just stretch them out a little bit. Good, and then we're going to come up to standing, and we're going to try one more thing. And I want you to see and notice if your balance is any better than maybe it was before, but also if you're conscious of having a bit more stability in that tissue box. So, standing with your feet together, thinking about the tissue box, staying on one side for this whole exercise. We're peeling, I'm going to go to my other side actually, we're going to peel the heel off and we're lifting the leg into a knee fold and then placing it back down. Staying on the same side. If you want to, place your hands on your torso. So something I'm looking at, and it's quite handy in this room with my pictures either side, I'm noticing that I'm not shifting. My plumb line isn't shifting from side to side. 4 of those. Stay on the same leg. You're going to lift that knee. This time you're going to push your opposite hand, nice flat palm, into that knee, and at the same time pull the shoulder back. So we're now rotating around the spine a little bit more. Watch that this knee stays opposite your hip, doesn't come across. So the legs are so square, upper body is just having this nice rotation. Same leg for 4 times. I'm going to turn around to the side. Push and pull. Check out your balance. How do you feel? Do you feel stable on that leg? Do you feel strong in your torso? That was the 4. We're adding on. This is the last part of it. I'm going to show you just 4 or 5 of these. I'm going to show you sideways. Just lightly touching opposite hand to leg. And then sweeping the leg back, swap the arms over, create this lovely diagonal line. Come into the knee fold and diagonal line. So from my top hand to that back foot. From the front, I'm thinking about my tissue box. It's really square. Here is square. As I go back, my leg is opposite my hip. My tissue box has just basically tipped forwards. I feel really strong. I feel really stable. Bit of a fluke, maybe I'll be rubbish on the second side. I'm going to do one more to make 5. And there, on the other side. Last thing, here we go. Lifting just the leg on its own. There's something, oh, not so, quite so good on this one. Something I really notice when I do this for my feet together is that connection inside thigh, helping me to control my balance and keeping my torso still. The inside thigh on the standing leg. All of that work we did on our inside thighs and pelvic floor, it's all kicking in now. I really feel like I've switched everything on. On that fifth one, opposite hand, pushing, a nice flat hand if you can. Push. Try and push the leg outwards, but bring it in at the same time, and then twist, pull the shoulder back, stay really upright. Put the foot down. Standing leg nice and straight if you can. No deviation from that plumb line, where it is, it stays there. Good, I'm going to do 2 to the side, sideways on. This time we're just lifting the leg, touching opposite hand. There will be a natural rotation there, and then the same arm as the leg that goes to the back comes forwards. Because the opposition side of things is always the front leg. So this knee is at the front, then the other knee becomes in front. That's what we mean by opposite. That's what creates that sling. Focusing on the tissue box. And I'm quite conveniently just managing to reach the wall behind me, which is helping to stabilise a little bit. Bending and straightening that standing leg. It's all going on. It's quite hard work. Woo. Thank you very much. Hope to see